So we didn't.
Sorry, practiced so many times. I'm so.
Right, hold it back. Paul.
Heads is heads.
For or against?
Hang on.
No,
They get the call. They get. We're all.
How many years
we're all
have you been doing this?
48.
Against.
Queen's College are going to go against the motion. For the motion, and you'll be starting first. Thank you. You're going to be back here just before 10.
Okay.
So it's not in front of you, it's not afterwards. Well, good morning everybody and welcome to this really beautiful school on a sunny day like this, and thank you very much Tim and Eva for the very warm welcome, much appreciated. Also of course warm welcome to the Queen's College and Janet Shorten and Marlon, welcome to see you here. We also have the president of our Rotary Club with us today, Nicola. Hope you enjoy the debate. Thank you very much. This is the final debate of the 10 preliminary debates. So this is really quite an important one, as I don't need to tell you. It'll be quite an exciting one. For both teams, of course. The debate today, as we know, is between Queen's College and the home team, Green Valley. But before we start, I would like to thank all our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible. Palmer Pictures, Imperial Properties, Clinic of Oneida, Ticket Travel and Ibex Insurance. And of course our Rotary gang sitting at the back there, Viv, Harry, John and Ron. Thanks very much to all of you for all the work you've given over these 10 debates. You've been great. Green Valley team here today. We have Clara Kutze, we have Julia Macchielli, nearly there, and we have Jan Kuna. And also from the Queen's team, we have Alexandra Clark, Daria Pajur, and Luke Tinsley. Timekeeper today is David Tittle. Judges, we have Hannah Christensen, Alison Tom, and the spokesperson for today is Sarah Collett. Thank you all of you for getting here, and a special thank you for Alison for standing in for somebody who is unwell today. Thank you, Alison. The motion today is Mallorca has become a victim of its own success in tourism. Very local one. Mallorca has become a victim of its own success in tourism. We've had the toss. Those debating for the motion, Green Valley, and those voting against the motion, Queens. So it's for the motion, Green Valley, against the Queens. Just a little couple of reminders. First of all, you know it all, but at the first minute, after the first minute, the bell rings and points of information are permitted. At the fourth minute, the bell again, and no further points of information are allowed. 5 minutes, that's time up. At the summing up, 2 minutes, no interruptions are allowed from either side. And also, which has come up in the last few debates, please remember, any points of information, you have a maximum 15 seconds. Okay? With all that said, let's begin the debate. And over to the sound counter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If we're all ready, then first speaker, Clara for Green Valley. Oh, and
Sorry, I forgot to mention.
someone.
I didn't think to make this. Surely the ex-president.
Ready? Are you ready? Let me know.
Yeah.
Super.
Good morning, honorable judges, distinguished guests, and members of the opposing team. My name is Clara Kunze, and together with Julia Micheli, Ilan Kune, and our researcher Letizia Kong, we are going to prove beyond any doubt that Mallorca has indeed become a tragic victim of its own success in tourism. But first of all, we would like to thank Rotary Calvia for this exciting opportunity and extend a warm welcome to our guests from Queen's College. Only in 2022, Mallorca has received over 9 million international tourists. Over 9 million on this small island with a population less than 1 million. Do you think this can be considered a success or a disaster? We strongly believe that this success is literally destroying our island. We are going to support our position with 3 solid arguments. First, I'm going to explain how mass tourism has destroyed our environment. Secondly, Julia will demonstrate how mass tourism badly affects our local population. And our third argument is that this success is jeopardizing Mallorca's future, as the island's economy is almost only reliant on one source of income. And this will be discussed by Ina. To go back to our first argument, let me examine the environmental devastations created by the exponential growth of tourism and demonstrate how this success has literally destroyed our island. Water. Close your eyes and envision the crystal clear waters that once graced Mallorca's shores. It's beautiful, isn't it? However, today, that image is fading away. Due to providing water to millions of tourists, our consumption of this precious resource has skyrocketed. With an increase of 40%, it has reached its breaking point. Just imagine the amount of water used daily for tourist accommodation. Showers, toilets, air conditioning, swimming pools, and so much more. And the conditions, the consequences, shrinking aquifers, diminishing water qualities, and the gradual erosion of what made our water pristine. The very essence of what made Mallorca magical is slipping away. But it's not just the water that suffers. Let's have a look at this image. Our beaches, once clear, are now covered by staggering 80% of marine litter, which is mainly plastic waste.
Quick information.
Yes?
That may only be one example. Over 90% of Newport is untouched by tourists, and that includes beaches. So that may only be one popular beach.
But in the future, it's going to be more and more. If the tourist influx is getting more and more over the future, it will just be the whole island, which will be covered in a staggering, like even more than 80%. Let me continue. The corruption of our coastline not only threatens the aesthetics, but it also threatens our marine ecosystem, as animals get entangled in plastic bags, or they ingest microplastics. So, for example, dolphins, fish, sea turtles, with over 100 other species, are innocent victims of Mallorca's success. And what about the very air we breathe? With the escalating influx of tourists, our pollution becomes a serious health issue. So, our skies are clouded by carbon dioxide emissions from an ever-increasing number of vehicles, cruise ships, and aeroplanes, like it says on this statistic right here. The air quality index has overstepped safe limits, affecting the health of both residents and tourists. And let's not forget the impact of noise pollution, which disrupts the tranquility of our natural habitat, driving away wildlife that once found comfort in Mallorca's stillness. So the toll on Mallorca's natural assets, the waters, the beaches, the air, the wildlife is obvious. The pursuit of the tourism success may lead to unchangeable damage. We must take action to balance out the necessities of environmental conservation and the tourist attractions. We must protect the soul of the island, ensuring its beauty remains for generations to come. Thank you.
Chair, judges and spectators. My name is Alexandra. Here are my colleagues Daria and Luke. Today my team and I will be arguing against a motion. Mallorca has become a victim of its own success in tourism. Specifically, I will be discussing COVID-19 and economic growth. Furthermore, Daria will be talking about sustainability. And finally, Luke will talk about infrastructure and development tourist tax. Throughout all of literature, there has always been a victim. And the opposite of a victim is resilience, which I will later talk about later in my speech. For this reason, we immediately associate the word victim with hurt, injured, or even destroyed. The notion that Mallorca has become a victim of its own success indicates that Mallorca has allegedly been harmed by tourism. Today, my team and I will prove to you undeniably that Mallorca has not been harmed by tourism. In 2019, more than 12 million tourists came to the island, and it's no secret why. Its secluded beaches and turquoise waters are immensely popular and are greatly loved by millions, and continues to be so to this very day. During 2020, as I'm sure we all remember, there was an astounding fall in the number of tourists coming. Only 2 million tourists came that year, which is significantly less than years before. At this point in my speech, you're probably wondering, well, how is this relevant? Let me assure you that this is extremely relevant because Mallorca has proven its resilience once again, which is the opposite to my definition of being a victim. And let me explain why. Firstly, even after the dark and dreary times of the pandemic, tourists have still remained loyal and have come back to Mallorca. This year alone, there have been 13.1 million tourists, and the year isn't even over. Secondly, over 90% of Mallorca remains untouched by tourists and continues to be preserved. Finally, pollution is a given in every country nowadays, yet Mallorca still goes to great lengths to decrease the amount of pollution there is. An example of this would be the recent law that only permits 3 cruise ships to dock in Palma Harbour per day, limiting the amount of tourists coming by cruise ships. Nobody here today can argue against the point
Point of information,
except
even if you're going to be limiting the amount of cruise ships coming, there is still an immense amount of cruise ships polluting the very waters of Mallorca constantly. How will this continue to affect the environment further? Because the increase in tourism is still fluctuating.
although this might be true, it's a step in the right direction, and this is only in Palma Harbour. This is only a small part of Mallorca. Now, nobody here today can argue against the points I've just made because we have all seen them with our very own eyes, which prove that Mallorca has not become a victim of its own success in tourism. Now, I'd like to discuss economic growth. Leading expert in communications, Karen Hughes stated, the travel and tourism industry is just a huge part of our economy. Although Mallorca isn't solely dependent on economic growth, as I proved earlier, it is still desperately needed due to the damage COVID has caused. This shows that Mallorca has not become a victim of its own success in tourism because tourism is needed tremendously. As I said earlier, 13.1 million tourists have come this year. This shows...
You talked about how important it was for tourism and how it's helping our economy, but didn't COVID actually prove how unhealthy it is to rely on tourism?
No, because during COVID, Mallorca has shown that it stayed resilient and strong because it suffered a few minor losses, which I will later address during my speech. As I said earlier, 13.1 million tourists have come this year. This shows undoubtedly that even after COVID, Mallorca will continue to be successful. As I said before, Mallorca isn't solely dependent on economic growth, and it has proven this to us continuously. Although the island has suffered a few minor losses, it is nothing compared to what other countries have lost. An example of this would be, in Thailand, multiple villages have been abandoned due to the lack of tourism in the pandemic, whereas Mallorca, it has remained strong, which proves without a shadow of doubt that Mallorca has not become a victim of its own success in tourism. I truly hope that I have proved to you today that Mallorca has not become a victim of its own success in tourism. Thank you for listening.
Are you ready?
Good morning. My name is Julia Micheli, and I will be developing our second argument in favor of today's motion. But first, I'd like to address some thought-compelling and thought-provoking points the opposing team has made. As I may have mentioned in my points of information, didn't COVID benefit the environment? Because not only were the turtles finally swimming, something that the environment of Mallorca, our beaches, hadn't seen in so long, but that just shows how dangerous the reliance on tourism really is. I mean, we saw first-hand experience as residents in this room the devastating losses that we faced. Now, on to my arguments. Our first speaker, Clara, explained to us how Mallorca has affected our precious environment. And now, I will further be examining how Mallorca has affected us, the very residents that live on this island. The influx of tourism is something that we've all seen, we've all experienced, and that we've witnessed with the 9 million visitors just last year, as Clara had pointed out. But let's put this into perspective, shall we? This island may come as a delight for tourists that come here, but who's paying the price? We, the residents, we, the locals, are paying the price. We are picking up after tourists, and we are paying with congested roads and difficult to find parking, and even
Congested roads are only for a limited amount of time during the year. So the majority of the year there are no congested roads.
But we still live, during those months, we are still active members of Mallorca. We should also have the opportunity to benefit from Mallorca's beautiful beaches and take trips to the beach as well, as much as tourists. Now, I'd also like to show you a picture of this overcrowded beach. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to take a photo of the actual beach as the queue was too long. Now, just the other day, I was talking to my neighbor Pedro. He's about as Mallorquin as one can get. And he drives his kids to school every day. And what used to take him a 10 to 15 minute drive now takes him an odyssey of well over half an hour.
Point of information, the school year isn't during the high tourism season, so how is that affected by tourism?
But I mean, I know for a fact as I drive to school today, it took me 45 minutes, just as much as him. A few years ago, this wasn't, when I'm referring to tourism, I'm also talking about the amount of people that are moving towards Mallorca, just as much as I'm sure all of you have fallen in love with this island and then chosen to move here, as our third speaker, Ilan, will continue to develop. As I was saying, overcrowding is a daily reality for us, turning the beaches and the streets of Palma into nightmarish throngs during high peak tourism seasons. As I said in the beginning, we are paying a price, but I didn't just mean that figuratively, I also meant this literally. So with these raising supermarket prices and the high rental costs, it's become an unaffordable island to live on for most locals. And bear in mind that the average salary is less than 2,000 euros a month. Less than 2,000 euros a month. That is the 5th lowest in Spain. So much for the supposed economic benefits that tourism is supposed to be bringing to our residents. Now, the heartache, the real heartache here, what's much far, far worse, is the fact that we are being taken away from our homes as we can no longer afford to live in them. The dire truth, 30% of Mallorquin people may face eviction due to unaffordable living costs. This context,
Information. Where's the source?
Accepted.
Where's the source of that?
The source, I can show it back in my argument there. I have it from a reliable source. I'll prove to you later. Now, let me continue. As I was saying, we can no longer afford to live in our own homes, as much as 30%, as he mentioned. Now, that is extremely alarming, but I'd also like to add that Dea, a lovely, charming artisan town, but has shifted its balance and is no longer how we remember it. 62% of the real estate market was bought by foreigners, further driving the locals out of their own homes. Now, we have shown the inconveniences. We have shown that it's too expensive to live here, and we have shown that we can no longer afford both rental and both houses, but also with rentals. Here you can see the vast majority of different properties, but in reality, no one can afford them. Thank you.
You ready?
Good morning, Chair, judges, and spectators. My name is Daria, and today, before I begin my speech, I would like to counteract some of the points that the other side have mentioned. The other side talked adamantly about plastic pollution that has been ruining our island. But have we taken into account the Balearics Waste Law that has been introduced? This doesn't allow the use of single-use plastics, such as cutlery, plates, and cups. What about the new certification, Plastic-Free Balearics? What is this doing, you may ask? This ensures that tourist companies use less single-use plastics, ensuring that our beaches remain cleaner. I would like to begin my speech now. Let me begin my speech today with a question. When we think of a victim, what words immediately come to mind? Pain, suffering, harm, permanent injury, correct? Now, when we think of Mallorca, what words immediately come to mind? As you can see in this very image, Mallorca is a lush, beautiful, verdant, and green island. Some might even say a paradise island. Now, do the words of a victim, the words of someone who has been harmed, do they ring a bell with the Mallorca we live in today? Do they? I'm sure many, if not most of you here, take the EMT Palma buses to school or even to work. I know I do. And then one day, when I was walking through Palma, I noticed that the majority of these buses ran either electrically or on natural gas. What about other forms of transport? We have a new flight connecting New York, the airport in New York, to the Palma airport. This ensures that Mallorquins have new routes, and this allows for a major cultural exchange to occur.
Wouldn't new flights to airports mean a more congested airport and more air pollution for the city of Mallorca and for the city of Palma?
Whilst, of course, this does have problems, we have to look at how this is also benefiting Mallorca. It is proven that American tourists are the ones who spend most money in Mallorca. On average, they spend $520 million on the island. Imagine how much that is improving our economy.
Point of information.
Yes?
Sorry. But you're mentioning this mass amount of money, but I don't see where we're reaping the benefits. Let me remind you that the average person makes less than 2,000 euros a month. Where is this money going to? Because it's certainly not the residents that live here.
This money is going towards projects such as the tourist tax. What is this doing? This is improving infrastructure. It's improving the buildings in which we live. As I was saying, I noticed all of these changes in the island, and I realized that they were changing my life, that they were changing the island's way of life. And then I thought to myself, hang on, if we are living in such a lush and beautiful island, with so much sustainability, and so many future projects that don't cease to amaze me when I read about them in the news, if we are living here, in this very place, then how can Mallorca be a victim? You can imagine how surprised I was. The stigma that has surrounded Mallorca's downfall in the news has been immense. The majority of newspapers, if not all newspapers, have published countless articles talking about Mallorca's
Point of
demise.
information.
Yes.
You mentioned Mallorca's downfall, but in one of your speeches, I think was the first speaker, you said how we were talking about resilience and how Mallorca has come back, if not the same, but better.
Yes, this is true, and it has. for example, these newspapers, they publish all of these negative facts, because this is all that people truly read. Would we read newspapers? Would these newspapers sell if they would be selling us positive facts? So just the fact that these newspapers, they give us this view of a negative Mallorca doesn't mean that it is truly the Mallorca we are living in. The final message I leave you with here today is this. If you were judged based on your downfalls, if your value as a person were to be reduced to your negative qualities, if qualities they can even be called, and if no one believed in you, then where would you be today? Think about it. Don't cast it aside. It's important. Thank you.
Get out. And you ready?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ilan Tuna, and as the third speaker of the Green Valley team, I'm going to be further explaining and proving why Mallorca's seeming success in the tourism industry is actually endangering the island's future. But first, let me address the points made by the opposing team. Now, they stated that Mallorca's resilience and ability to come back from the pandemic has really made it not a victim. But I ask you, what about the countless animals' lives who have already been destroyed? Or the kids who have been running around throughout their childhood on trashed beaches? Brings me back to our argument. Clara, our first speaker, has shown how the tourism industry has practically destroyed the natural environment by laying waste to our beaches and polluting the air. Julia, our second speaker, has shown the heavy impact on residents whose lives have been made unbearable by the massive, unregulated influx of tourists every year. But the worst outcome of Mallorca's success story is that the tourism industry has become our main source of income. As the General Director of Tourism says, around 200,000 jobs depend directly on the tourism industry. It's nearly a quarter of our island's population. So why is this so alarming? Because it has made Mallorca complacent and overconfident in its ability to make money, quite literally out of the blue sky. And they have forgotten to create a plan B. As millions of tourists flock to the island year after year, the island has learned to take this easy money for granted. But just making one economic activity the backbone of a society and a region's prosperity is unhealthy.
Information.
Yes.
You say they've taken that, like they're used to having easy money.
Yes.
Yet in COVID there was no tourism. There was a small amount of tourism, yet Mallorca still survived and still remained strong. So it shows that it isn't solely dependent on the tourism money.
That is true. I will talk about the lockdown in a second, but the human nature allows us to be resilient through many things, such as the pandemic or pandemics in the past. But this is not to say people didn't suffer. As we can see here, there is a very long queue for a charity meal right outside of Plaza España in the center of Palma. The simple cancelling of international tourism had devastating effects on Mallorca. This led to hotels, restaurants, shops, and entertainment venues having to close, leaving hundreds of thousands of people with less work, jobless, or on the street. I'm sure we all remember this. Now, can we trust this situation to not happen again? No. Even if there is no other pandemic, there are many other factors that will stop tourism, such as an economic crisis that will stop people going on holiday. Or, more likely, climate change, which has already made Mallorca a scorching hot 40 degrees in the summer. And this is rising every year.
Point of information.
Yes.
Many people come just for the temperatures, just for the heat. So
Yes.
wouldn't that be beneficial? Wouldn't that benefit Mallorca?
Yes, they came for the heat. And on news reports and online it says 37 to 38, maybe 39 degrees. But 40 and a predicted 41 to 42 degrees will stop people from coming and going to other places in the north of Spain, or maybe just in other countries in general. Now, do we have a plan B? No. Mallorca's success means that we have sleepwalked into a trap of easy money and neglected to develop other economic activities, industries, or services. After 70 years of mass tourism, now in the third generation of Mallorca inhabitants who primarily depend on tourism for jobs. Young people are preparing for work in catering, hosteleries, or entertainment, or flat out leaving the island for better opportunities. In conclusion, this short-sighted and potentially short-lived success has made Mallorca vulnerable and unprepared for the future. One last thing. I was born in Mallorca. Mallorca is my home, and it pains me to see the island trampled to death year after year by this unregulated tourism, and deprived of a dignified future because of the lack of vision, foresight, and planning. Thank you.
Your turn to get out.
Good morning, Chair, judges and spectators. My name is Luke and I'm the third speaker for my team today. Before I begin my speech, I'd like to refute some of the points made by the opposition. Speaker 1, you stated how tourism is getting out of hand and affecting our environment. But I will prove to you how this island is doing something to solve this small problem. Speaker 2, you never got back to my points of information, supplying me with the source for your bold claim of 30% evictions in the future. And Speaker 3, you claim that the money from tourism is out of the blue. But this is untrue. This industry has been established on this island for 50 years. It's not out of the blue. Back to my speech. As Alexander showed, we are not being taken advantage of by tourists, but vice versa. Tourism has brought great economic prosperity. We as an island have rightfully taken advantage of tourism. Then, Daria illustrated the clear effect of this prosperity on our island. Little things all around us that make our lives easier. Now I will present to you our concluding argument that will undoubtedly show that Mallorca is not becoming a victim of its own success in tourism. My point, sustainable and pragmatic management. The aspects the opposition are claiming to present Mallorca as a victim are mere discrepancies, repairable and being solved as we speak. Firstly, the tourist tax is a charge levied by the Balearic government for almost all visitors to Mallorca since 2016. Roughly 120 million euros is raised each year as a result of the initiative, used to protect and recover the environment, develop technological innovations, maintain tourism infrastructure, and protect historical heritage. To name a few examples, Labour endeavours were funded for the owners of Mallorca's iconic windmills, and more money was put into renovating in the UNESCO World Heritage Tramontana mountain range. Secondly, we have seen limitations on the use of alcohol in the main resorts of Arenal and Magaluf, wherein the root of all drunken disruption lies. These resorts have all-inclusive hotels.
Point of information?
Yes.
Where do you have that from with alcohol? Do you have a source?
Yes, so my source for this is the Mallorca Daily Bulletin have done multiple articles basically showing, telling us how the government is making changes in these resorts. So I will now carry on to show you. These resorts have all-inclusive hotels which previously allowed tourists to drink alcohol endlessly.
You mentioned how you're essentially protecting cultural heritage, but Dea's charm is being lost thanks to all the new foreigners coming in and taking away its and now tourist apartments are coming in and taking away all the rental spaces, making Dea lose its precious charm.
And I do believe that that Dea's government will, from the money raised by the tourist tax, will do something to change these sorts of problems. For many hotels, this is no longer the case. Governing bodies have tackled the problem head on, and to ensure it works, sanctions have been raised for those who choose to break these rules. So what does this show? Does it show a government that is doing nothing and letting its island fall victim to mass tourism? No, it does not. It shows a government that is doing what has to be done and getting involved in protecting the interests of its people. It is an insult to claim that Mallorca has become a victim. It is an insult to the hard-working people who efficiently run this island. It is an insult to the real victims of tourism. I ask you to look around, and as Daria perfectly stated, think outside the box. This stigma that Mallorca is damaged by tourism is now up to you to decide. Is it really the case? Do you really choose to believe this? If you do, you are ignoring all that I have stated. You are ignoring what is effectively all around us. The very ground beneath our feet. Is the place where we live our day-to-day life really a victim? Because all I see is paradise. It's why many of us came to live here, is it not? But if you choose to believe what the opposition are claiming, then you are no longer in paradise. You aren't in Mallorca, but frankly, a depressing view of Mallorca. Thank you.
Both teams, fantastic. You have 2 minutes to prepare your summing up.
And we know that we sit in front of them, don't we? It's like 10 minutes again. Think about it. I think we've got to go.
Okay, thank you very much. We have the lead speaker, please, Queens, to sum up again. You have 2 minutes. You ready?
The other team, overall, have given many arguments to try to convince you that Mallorca has become a victim of its own success in tourism. But we are all forgetting an extremely important point. What is Mallorca? Mallorca is part of Spain. And Spain, it's a first world country. And what are we doing? We are finding solutions. We are resilient. We are strong. Did you know that only 6% of all spaces in Mallorca are urban spaces? And 44%, nearly half of the island, is in fact a protected space, such as the Tramontana Mountains. The other team have stated there's plastic pollution, there's air pollution, there's damage to the island. But look outside. Look at where we are living. Can you truly tell me that damage has come to Mallorca? What about the plastic and the noise pollution? Do these truly come from tourism? Let's be honest. Do all of us here recycle always? Do all of us use recycled plastics? Do we sometimes not buy single-use plastics? So how can we blame all of the damage that has come to Mallorca solely due to tourism? What about the event industry? Tourism is not only in the summer, it is all year round. So what is Mallorca doing by proving this change? It is proving that it isn't a victim, that it hasn't been a victim, and it will not, under any circumstances whatsoever, be a victim in the future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion and summation, we would like to address the points made by the opposing team. They've mentioned insult, and for me and my family, the real insult is bringing my little sister, who has been wanting to be a marine biologist her whole life, and a singer, and a dancer, and an astronaut, to the beaches, and having her climb over mounds of plastic and seeing cigarette butts on the floor asking, what is that? That is the real insult. The real insult is bringing my grandmother, who has been swimming a kilometer every day for the past 45 years, she's very fit, to the beaches, and having her not wanting to swim because of the pollution that tourism brings. The real insult is people becoming jobless becoming homeless because of the increased prices in housing, and having to move 50 minutes, an hour and a half away from schools because that is the only place they can afford. Now, imagine having to drive your kid an hour and a half to school and back every day, not having time to work. This would also lead to decrease in jobs. Mallorca is a victim. It is a very, Mallorca is a victim. It has become a victim of its own success as a popular tourist destination. And we are looking outside and seeing the physical damage that tourism has caused the beaches, the wildlife, and the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good. Now you can relax. Stand to the desk. I might ask you if we can open up questions from the floor.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
I've been to most of them this year, I've missed a couple. Off the scale good, both of you, so well done. So we'll start with the question we always ask. Green Valley, you won the toss, yes?
No.
No, you won the toss. Okay, so you lost the toss.
Yeah.
Had you won the toss, which side of the argument would you have chosen to?
Our side.
You would have chosen your side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, honestly, we were kind of in between both because we saw a lot of opportunity on both sides.
Okay.
Personally, I would say my personal bias may have crowded more towards the against, but generally we wanted to have in favor, so we were pretty happy.
Okay. And Queens, you listened to Green Valley's presentation. How many of their arguments had you developed in your counter argument had you lost the toss and had to vote, go their way? How many, you listened to their argument, which is obviously opposite yours. How many of their arguments had you developed in your own presentations for that side?
Well, in my speech, I did talk about what Clara said on water shortages.
Yeah.
So that I definitely recognized it with what I would have said. But I did talk about the drunk and disorderly behavior, and none of them mentioned it, so that was different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also talked about, I would have talked about the civil unrest on this island just with protests and everything. That's what would have been in my point.
Okay. And Green Valley, how many of their arguments had you developed? Had you?
Thought of COVID-19,
Yeah.
but we thought of it actually in our favor instead of in that context. Because like we thought it proved how tourism really impacted Mallorca in a negative way, and how, I don't know if you've like talked to some of the local Mallorquin here, but they were really like when they compare it to when they were younger, it was completely different. And they talk about the beautiful beaches, and now they're like very against the foreigners just because they feel like they've ruined the island, which I don't fully think is true, because they have done good things. And we also definitely had infrastructure. Like that because of tourists, you can now have tunnels, roads. We had that as well.
Yeah, and we also talked about like the flights from New York, and then
Yeah,
also like flights to other places like China and Japan.
And you all talked about plastic pollution, so it's obviously a big issue for you. Did in your research, where did you find that the plastic pollution originated from? Did you find that it majority originated from the island or from elsewhere?
It was imported to the island.
Imported, so not tourist, local. It was coming
Well,
from.
imported for the tourists.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. This is nothing to do with your arguments in the debate, but we had a presentation by the founder of Greenpeace in Spain a couple of weeks ago, and he pointed out that there's a big nature reserve, a marine reserve coming between Ibiza, Cabrera and Mallorca, and the reason it's being implemented is because they consider the waters around Mallorca to be the cleanest in the Mediterranean.
I'm glad they didn't use that.
and one of the things from COVID, which was there was no reduction in the plastic pollution, and there was a water inversion that was actually for 2 weeks the wind blew from the south, and there was a wall of plastic that had blown across from Africa. And then it was almost hit Mallorca, the wind turned and it blew it back again. And this guy was saying there's something like 700 million tons of plastic dumped in the Med every year, predominantly from Africa. So was, I just wondered, had you, in your research, you hadn't picked up on that?
No. Actually, we found our arguments. I think she was.
No, don't worry.
Go on, fire away if you've got a question.
Okay, so you said that like all American people, they say it was so much better before, which I don't, because I'm European, I have a lot of American family, like my grandpa, and he says that it was a lot better before, as in, not before, after, sorry, that he saw a lot of development and a lot of the wildlife is conserved. So like, where do you think this like division of views about tourism in New York comes from? Because a lot of people, like all American people, think that tourism has brought improvement.
It's interesting to hear because like I live in like Senseias, but not even. I live in like Ruberts, which is a very like small town, and we know our neighbors, and they have like completely different opinions to you. They're like they always talk about these Pedro. I do actually have a neighbor named Pedro. I did not make that. He doesn't drive his kids to school though every day. He's now 67 years old. But aside from the point, he always talks about how when he was little, he was way more pretty, and we took that into account because we saw the photos before. So with that and just like general assumption of how it looked before, we assumed, and I don't see a lot of like talking or like interaction between my European people and foreigners. So I always thought it was sort of resentment, but I don't know.
Has anyone else got anything you wanted to raise? Just as a point of interest, speaking from experience, old people always say it's better.
I was going to say,
Can I say, my music was an awful lot better than yours.
Sometimes it's true.
Indeed, yeah.
Definitely.
No, there are arguments.
And politics was with Franco when he was in charge.
Yeah, he initiated tourism in Mallorca. He was the one that incentivized everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring up Franco too, because then it depends really people's view on if you thought it's better if you lived during Franco's time, and if you think it's better now, it's probably because you were less fortunate because a lot of Catalan people were oppressed, or it was illegal to speak Catalan, and there's a lot of like hush about that time. So maybe it's also having to do with that, like. Spanish people do not talk about the Franco.
No, they don't.
Mallorca was based with the Franco.
Yeah.
And the tourism boom was Franco's reward, let's say, payments. So it's not like Mercury routes, all that.
Anyone else got anything, comments about what you've heard? Agree or disagree? No? I'm the only one who's got anything to say.
No. Look, our arguments, we found that the arguments for against were better because we found ours were very down-facing, like everything was very negative, like, oh, we're being polluted, oh, this, oh, that. But we thought we could attack better from this side, so that's why we were happy to get it produced.
I think we picked against because it is true, it can be harder to, I feel like, support this side of the argument because it's very visual what we're seeing around the island in terms of pollution, etc., etc. So I do think the reason we picked this was because we thought we had some very strong arguments on a very hard topic to defend, and I think, I hope it benefited us in some way. So, but other than that, we did have pretty much a very similar argument to theirs, and we do believe that it's a strong argument.
I think we're a bit surprising because we talked a lot as well about globalization, like thanks to all the like new investments being made. So that was something we. Does anyone have any more points of interest?
The percentage of tourism, what did you mention? How much is the percentage of tourism as work, giving work?
You're Spanish. Oh, so Ilan, you're Mallorquin?
I'm not Mallorquin, but I was born here and my parents were born
Or Mallorquin then?
Yeah.
So the rest of us are all immigrants?
Yeah. I see, except for the Mallorquin.
Yes, but talking about the competitors. So all come from different parts of Europe or the world, and obviously your parents chose to come here.
Ilan had this point in his speech that we are all here. People very long stayed here.
Exactly.
And created international schools.
Yes.
Such as Green Valley Mallorca
I know.
and Queens. And they give education to all the children and so on.
And how many of you have English as your first language?
Do you speak English at home?
So half. It's astounding to me that you can present at the quality that you are in a language which is not your first. Because I've been here 7 years and I'm still on about 10 words of Spanish. Try and get to the 11th soon. It's incredible to me. It's constant amazement at how you can talk so eloquently in a language that isn't yours. Incredible. And how many languages do you speak? Can we go around? You speak English?
I speak 3, English, French, and Spanish.
Okay, and Catalan? Mallorquin?
I understand Mallorquin because of the French and Spanish. It's very similar, but I can't bring out the words. But I understand them.
Julie?
I speak Mandarin, Dutch, English.
That's enough. you're embarrassing us now.
I'm trying to learn Spanish.
Wow.
Mandarin. Wow.
Clara?
I speak only English and German, but I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm not really there yet, but it's going well.
Are you taking any lessons in Spanish?
Yeah, I do.
Are you mandated by law to take certain lessons in Spanish?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
For this school, like when you live here, I think you have to take Spanish.
Yeah. Good for you. And Alexander? Alexander?
English, French, Spanish, and I'm learning German.
Wow. Daria, I'm
I'm
scared to
Romanian.
ask.
I'm Romanian, so Romanian is my first language. Then I speak English, Spanish, French, and Catalan kind of.
Luke, I don't want to ask you because you're going to...
No, he's not impressive at all. Just English and Spanish.
No, trust me, that's very
impressive.
That's very
That is
impressive. Wow, it's amazing. And which language do you find easier to formulate your thoughts in? Is it your native language, or are you starting to formulate your thoughts in a different language? What's your first language that you think of?
What do you dream in?
Yeah. What language do you dream? That's a good way of putting it. English?
I'm in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
I'm not really sure. I really can't say. I think for me it's like a mix of both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. It depends on who I'm like with on the day. So if I'm talking to like my Dutch friends before I go to bed, I'll probably have Dutch thoughts. But if I'm just,
Yeah, exactly.
or like if I'm with like English people, I'll just think in English. Like I think in what I'm speaking.
Wow.
I grew up with a French mother, so whenever she yells at me, she only yells at me. So I find arguing much easier in French, also because it sounds really complaining. But most of my thoughts are in English.
Okay. And then just one other question. The judges aren't here, so you can tell the truth. How many of you used AI to help in your presentation?
I used this AI called Misfits.
Right.
Very helpful.
I don't know that one.
But she's standing right in front of you, so.
I helped. I edited it.
Yeah, I had to, I don't know, I tried. The thing is, with ChatGPT, I haven't really gotten the learning curve yet, so I couldn't use it for this debate, but rest assured, I'll use it for the next one. If there's a next one, I'm gonna use it.
Well, don't say that.
Clara, you're very quiet.
I don't know what to say. It's my first debate. I've
I'll
never
cover
done it
Eva's
before.
ears for you.
Yeah,
Well
so
done.
I'm just still like thinking about like what I said, how I did it. So
All natural.
Very well.
You spoke
Fantastic.
completely without any aide-memoirs, which was very impressive.
I'd certainly say, like, if we were the judges, I think we all agree, I would, say all sides are winners.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Straight up.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal.
As a general side. Also, I'd say, I think we really appreciate the great atmosphere that there is. You can see on both sides, you both got your different points of view, but there's a mutual respect. Because there's a mutual respect, that's the whole essence of it. So it's certainly a congratulations from us.
Yeah.
For you
Yes.
all.
We'd like to thank you guys for such a great
Honestly,
debate.
and you guys did like really well. Look, we knew that we'd have a challenge, but this was like
We watched your last debate. I
San
think it was San Cayetano.
we were like.
And we were like, oh my god, we really have to like, we have to
also
really
watched
do well.
your debate, your last one.
So you're watching the other debates
Yeah.
on YouTube. Harry doesn't know how many people watch it. He spends hours putting it on YouTube.
We appreciate it.
Pleasure. You can look it back in a couple of days.
We always do. We like to look at our faces, the faces of the opposing team that they make when we say something, and then we'll zoom in and see.
And do any of your parents watch?
Thanks, Julia.
Do any of your parents watch your debates when it comes out? Yeah.
Yes, my mother sits there very proud. Even when I do like a little thing like get out of the chair, she's like.
Oh, that's quite a challenge today.
Well, yes. And then the last one too, I tripped over the chair.
My brother likes to watch the debates.
Yeah,
Yes,
my mom,
he
she
does.
was like, can I not come and watch the debate? I really would love to.
Yeah.
But then I had to tell her that probably not.
And your mother come to the final?
If we make it there, then hopefully yes.
Well,
We
okay.
will.
She can.
No, but I want to give the other team a chance.
Well, everybody comes to the final, you know, all 10 teams come to the final regardless of positions. But I just think today you guys have made it so much harder for the judges.
Hence the amount of time you're taking.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the food.
That's what it is.
Debate, John, with a bit of humour as well.
We do. It was
Actually,
very
we didn't
good.
have a lot of laughs through there, but it was a good debate. Anyways, I would ask the judges now to start giving their summing up. Could I start with Alison, please, if you'd like to say a few words?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you both teams. It was amazing. I know we always say this how close it is, but really it was. We were struggling in there to sort of come up with the winner. But first, one comment I'd like to make is my other judges are going to make different comments as well. One comment I would like to make is to Queens, just to say I really enjoyed the way you paused between your points. You let it settle. So you said something and you gave us time to sort of digest what you'd said. It was very, you used your hands and body language. So I really enjoyed that. And also the way you changed your introduction. So you stood up to introduce yourselves, but you answered the other team before you started. So you're thinking on your feet, which is great in debating. So thank you very much.
Hannah?
Yeah, I think it was a really very nice level today. It was on both teams, a good teamwork, one better than the other, but it was both a very good teamwork, I thought. And what I particularly liked was that you were able to react to each other's points of interest in your speech, which is not very easy to do because obviously you trained your speech for 5 minutes, so that you are able to immediately incorporate your comments on the other opposing team's points of interest. I thought that was remarkable, really.
Thank you, Hannah. Sarah, would you like to come and do this summing up?
Almost feel the anticipation, can't you, with it? Go on. What a lot of this comes down to is how convincing. Where shall I stand? Shall I stand that way?
Yeah.
How convincing can you be in your arguments, and the way you've researched this and the facts that you've come up with is really stunning. I think it's incredible that you managed to remember it, and some of you were really presenting without reading your notes very much at all, which is always incredibly impressive given that you're only given the argument for or against half an hour before. Reiterating is very important, and I particularly liked, was it? I'm looking at my notes here. Luke, I like this reiteration. It is an insult. It is an insult this and an insult that. Because it brings the audience with you. It captures the ear. And those sort of phrases really do cause people to listen very closely, I think, along with your pauses. What else did I want to say? I'd like to say to Julia, I really like the way you said, I'd like to develop the argument, because that sort of gives us a lead into where you're going, and orientating your audience is key to make sure they know where you are in the structure of your arguments. So, in conclusion, very, very well done. And I would just like to say that we had a very, very difficult debate ourselves, and there were 2 judges to 1 in the final decision of who's won this debate today. But first of all, we need to award the best debater. And for the clarity and the lack of using notes, facts, and the presentation, that goes to Clara.
Thank you so much.
So finally, the pause. And we award this particular debate to Green Valley.
You guys did so good.
Could we have a picture? Would somebody like
Do you want to
everyone?
join?
Huh? There we are.
Oh yeah, take it.
And take.
Coming for this one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And can I then have a Right, I'm going to come in. Can we have your team out? Come over. We're trying. I think it's easier in front of the table, isn't
it? Can we have our researcher with us? Letty. She's part of the team.
Oh,
She's
right.
not the
Oh,
speaker.
yes, of course. Sorry.
She was part of the success.
Thank you.